Hello world, it's Dave again, and more specifically, hello Matthew. You took the time to write me and ask me a few questions, so I figured I'd make a video to answer those. Only got a couple here, so it shouldn't take forever, and I wouldn't want to take up that much of your time. So I'm just going to refer back and forth to your email. I've already given it a read through, but I'll go back and forth here and answer them as best I can, and I hope you find the answers useful. So let's see. First one that you jump into here is, when you come over to Japan, you were recommended by your company that you bring over, it was $5,000. And your question was, did you find the $5,000 to be sufficient amount of money to bring over with you, and did you take this amount? Or however much you took in cash or traveler's checks as recommended in some documents. Okay, so long story short, if you bring over $5,000 cash, that would be more than enough money, significantly more than enough money. Absolutely. I brought over far, far less than that. I brought over something like, I think it was $2,000 I actually brought over, nowhere near the actual recommended amount, $2,000 or $3,000, I can't remember. But then you go on to say that, you know, you saw that they were talking about traveler's checks and stuff. You're smart to be hesitant regarding traveler's checks. There's a lot of places you wouldn't want to, unless you spoke Japanese really well, even go into a bank and want to speak with them about traveler's checks, and a lot of banks don't even accept them. They just be like, what the hell is this? They just don't want to go through the headache of processing them. I would just say traveler's checks are just a bad, bad, bad idea. And I know it says in a lot of documentation that taking money out in Japan is difficult with a Visa debit card or with a debit card. And to be absolutely truthful, it's nonsense. It's not difficult at all. I believe there is a withdrawal limit per day of $1,000 that you can take out, and you're going to get dinged on an international exchange rate. But when I've taken out, I think I took out like $1,000 at one time, and I think I was charged $35. So that's, I guess some people would call that pretty steep, but the fact that I could come to Japan, not have been carrying around that $1,000 on my person, and be able to take it out for $1,035, you know, it cost me $35, is no problem. I'm willing to pay $35, and so any debit card or Visa card will work in their ATMs here with about a maximum withdrawal of $1,000. And so if you bring over, like you suggested, you know, some money that you then exchange in the airport and then withdraw from an ATM, whatever it is that you need, being aware that there is that charge, so it is a little bit expensive to do it, but, you know, not that expensive at all in my opinion, then you're in great shape. The one thing I would caution against is the traveler's checks. I don't think they're really that useful. You don't need them, and then you never know who's going to give you a headache when you go in and try to cash them. They're just unnecessary, and I don't know why there's this kind of like, unless you speak to somebody who has traveled, I don't know why there's this big mystery about using their ATMs here with your debit card or something. I don't know why that's such an issue. You can do it in Thailand, you can do it in Japan, you can do it in all over the world. You can just go to an ATM and there's a charge for it, but you can totally use their ATMs to take out money. So yeah, the way that I did it was kind of like, it was funny. I was talking to one of my French buddies when I was Parisian French, when I was in Vancouver, and I said I got one of those like traveler things that you can put around here, you know, and just put your money into, and that's what I used. And he was kind of laughing about that because he said that anywhere that you travel, were it to be dangerous, all the people know that that's how tourists or people who've just arrived travel. And they'll like steal that off of you in no time, even though it's attached to your person. They just like run up, cut it, and then run with it. But he was also joking that if you come to Japan, it's one of the few places, if you come with a significant amount of money and you have it like securely on your person, that this place, if it's one thing, it's very, very safe, and so you don't need to worry. So if you want to bring over like a couple $1,000 and you've got it very, very safely stored, you know, be conscientious, keep an eye on that and everything, but I wouldn't so much worry about theft. But truth of it is, you can take money out from debit machines. So to bring the total amount of $5,000, I think is actually overkill. That's like being ready for a space invasion of hostile aliens. I just don't think that you need that full amount. But of course, they're trying to prepare you in a way that's overkill, so you're removing any possibility of something going wrong. But I think that you still have that security, bringing not nearly that much. And like I said, I brought 2,000 or 3,000. I could have taken money out in ATM at any time, and I discovered that even with the amount that I brought, I was like, man, maybe this is a little bit overkill, because it felt a little bit, when I was coming over with that amount of money, I was like, wow, this is a lot of money to have on my person. So if you want to bring a little less and just withdraw it from a bank machine, I wouldn't worry about that at all. I think it's fine. One man's opinion. You asked the question, do you have a recommendation for phone contracts into Japan? In Japan, I'd like to have a smartphone while over there, especially for GPS, in case I didn't have a car, or in case I had a car, assuming I end up driving. Good question. I came over, and it's funny. I used to sell cell phones. That was my thing. I was in wireless. I was in corporate sales for wireless, and I managed a store for a while. And so all the time that I did that, I never had a smartphone. So like yourself, when I came to Japan, I was like, I'm getting a smartphone when I come to Japan. I'm finally going to, step into the modern world and get one of these phones. So very, very relevant, and you'll be helped with that. You'll be helped with that process. Now, some places they'll say they'll expect you to have all this different stuff. Like I went to one, they got different companies. Okay, so there's AU, there's Docomo, there's which one am I forgetting? SoftBank. So you got these three different companies that I'm aware of. Maybe there's other ones, but that was what I was most aware of. And when I came over and I went to SoftBank, this is funny too, because I'm a big Windows OS user. I'm all about Google. And then I just totally threw it all up in the air, and I was like, I'm going to get an iPhone. And so I went into SoftBank, and they said that, oh, well, you need to pay for the phone outright, so that's going to be $600. I was like, what? And I got the impression that that was because, and I don't blame them for this, because I'm a foreigner, they were saying, they basically want to protect themselves from tons of people who would come to the company, and for you to get a reduced cost on the device, you have to sign a contract. They're afraid of people being here for 1 year, taking off with the device, and then never paying for the cancellation fee. You buy it for $50, you take off, and then you don't pay the cancellation fee that would have recouped the cost of the phone. And so they don't want to sell it to foreigners for that reason. Or they want to sell it to you outright before you can get it. And so I was like, screw that. I was like, there's no way I'm paying for this phone outright, especially because I feel like I've waited long enough. It's no longer to get the iPhone 5 or whatever. It was no longer a really hot item. I was like, there's no reason I shouldn't get a sweet deal on this. I'm just going to go to one of the other companies. And so we go into one of the other companies, and this one, they were like, well, how long are you going to be here? They asked that question. I said, I'm going to be here for like 2 or 3 years. And they're like, okay. And so I just told them I was going to be here for 2 years, and that company said fine. And then I bought my phone on a 2-year contract. They gave the phone to me for $50. And so I was like, yeah, that's how much it should cost, not that I have to buy the thing outright and still be in a contract with you. That's the thing with cell phones, that if it's so dependent on the actual sales rep that you end up coming into contact with. They all have, I know this because I worked in it, they've all got different thresholds of fear and what is right and what is that. So I would say if you feel like you're getting a really, really raw deal, or they're not allowing you to sign into a contract, and you know that you might be here for a couple years, then I would just go to the next store, even if it's the same company, or just immediately try a different company and see if they offer you something better. I would suggest when you're here, when you pay for a plan, you basically, what I think is a good deal, is I went for a plan that cost me, I have 0 things attached aside from their basic talk plan and 7 gigs of data. And if you know anything about data, that's like mass overkill. It might as well be unlimited data when you get 7 gigs of it. And you know, I watch streaming videos all the time. I've never come anywhere near the amount of using my entire data plan. This cost me per month after tax somewhere between $64 and $70 a month. And the way that you make that work, this is kind of the trick that I would tell you to pay attention to, is that the way that their talk plans work here are not that good. It's set up like this, that if you have a talk plan here, it's free to anybody that you're talking to who is on the same company. You know, it's like a family plan feature is put on for every single plan that you find, whether you go to Docomo, SoftBank, or wherever else. They'll all offer you kind of the same plan unless you pay a huge premium to have it cheaper to be talking between providers. And the way to circumvent this is through data. And that's because when you got the 7 gigabyte plan, or all of them have some variation on unlimited data here that cost you between the $60 and $70 range, combined with the basic voice plan. And when I say $60 or $70, I mean that Canadian. So in American, it's basically the same right now. What you do is you download one of the myriad of apps that's now available that allows you to talk using data, and that is, you can use Viber to do that. That's one. You can literally make phone calls using Viber, and you can call and message for free using Viber, and it's all data, so you never use your voice plan. The only time I use my voice plan is when I talk to maybe somebody directly from the company or something like that. But if you know somebody, just use an app. And the one that's really popular here in Japan as well is called Line. So you've got Line you can use. Everybody's going to have Line, and then you can just message with each other for free using data. You can use Viber. That'll talk for free with people using data. Voxer is another one that you can use. That's free. WhatsApp, I believe, is the same thing. You can have Skype on your phone. There, like I say, a myriad, a plethora, a huge amount of these different apps, and you want to stay away from using your talk time, because your talk time, you are going to talk to people cross-provider. It's gonna be a bad time if you end up actually using your voice plan. But because of the beauty of data, you don't need to do this. So that's the tricks of the trade. Make sure that you use the data application for your talk and texting. Stay off of your actual talk plan, but you can't get the phones without having a talk plan that you then attach your data to, and it's going to cost you between $60 and $70 a month. Unless somebody corrects me and maybe there's some amazing plan. That was just the best that I could find. And be hesitant if somebody says that you have to buy the phone outright, and that's the only way that they'll do it, because I came over with a credit card and I came over with my passport, and that's all they needed. For the one place, they said I could go into a contract for 2 years, no problem. The other place said I still had to buy the phone outright. And so, be hesitant in those cases. All right, so moving on to your final question. And finally, what do you typically eat day to day? I understand that generally school lunch is offered for a small price. That's correct. What do you do for dinner? Is it possible to buy ingredients and make your own dinner cheaply? The kitchen I do have is on the small side, as will yours be if you're in a similar place. But it doesn't really matter. So I do typically eat day to day the lunch at school, and provided it's not too fishy. Sometimes it's just like smothered in barbecue sauce and it's like nearly raw fish, and I'm just like, oh, I'll eat sashimi and stuff, but like a little fish fillet with the skin on that's like almost raw with just smothered and glaze is not for me. But majority of the time, I've been just fine eating their lunches, no problem. And so you really do pretty much have a large portion of your eating covered, because you've got that for your lunches. Aside from that, whether you go to Mega Donkey, which is kind of like their Walmart equivalent, you can buy whatever food there, tons of stuff, whether it's Western or Asian, or you go to Hayashi or any sort of supermarket that's probably going to be local to you. You can buy tons of stuff that'll be like you're at home in the West, or you can err on the side of having more Western food. It's not difficult to eat here. it's not difficult to find things that you enjoy. I really don't think so. They have it, basically, if you're looking for it. I've always been able to find it in some form or another, any sort of item that I've looked for, be it Western or Asian. The one thing that I really would recommend, which is no surprise at all, is to just get a rice cooker. That's what I do a lot. I got a rice cooker. I was holding off buying one. There was this family that invited me over. I've made a video on Japanese kindness regarding this. I went over for dinner, and at the end of it, they were like, "Do you have a rice cooker? Do you like to eat rice?" And I was like, "I don't have the cooker, but I love rice." Gohan wa daisuki desu. And they were like, "Here, take our rice cooker." And rice cookers are so amazing. I mean, I had one back in Canada, but you put in the rice, you put in the water, you press start, you got some wicked carbs, and then you grab yourself a frying pan for a couple of bucks and fry up whatever protein it is that you want to eat, or veggies. But long story short, I'm just sort of making that anecdotal. There's no need to. Eating here is not difficult, and school lunch covers a lot of your needs, and it is a minimal charge. So don't worry about the eating here. It's fine. You'll find tons of different options at whatever place that you go to. I suggest the rice cooking just because that can be another way to keep your costs down if you buy a big thing of rice. Yeah, so that seems like it. It was just those couple of questions. The traveling money thing is less of an issue than it's made out to be. The smartphone thing, I hope I've explained well enough. That's kind of funny getting asked that because, like I said, I'm actually particularly experienced in that field, I would say, from my past and now from being here. And then the eating thing is covered as well. So, Matthew, I hope that was helpful. I really do wish you luck when you're over here. If you're in the Tokyo or Chiba area or anywhere around there, maybe we get together for some cheap beers at Caesarea or something like that when you arrive. All right, cool. I hope this helped. Anybody else checking out the video? I hope this was useful for you if you're going through a similar experience. And like I like to say, until we meet again next time, world, thanks for tripping with Dave. Share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Ciao for now. Peace.